everybody, I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I've been doing a series of webinars during the pandemic, and we're coming up on me being off the road for a year, which means I have not been on an airplane in a year, which I can't remember the last time that happened. So it's pretty incredible. And it's just been really amazing to do all these webinars. This is number 174.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm hoping to keep going as things open up and we start to get back to a normal life. We have a full schedule for March. So if you haven't signed up for some of the webinars there, you can go to the Murdoch Method website and sign up for them. We have a full book this month. And the other thing to remember is this is your last opportunity to sign up for the grand prize for the 5th year anniversary. You have to enter all 5 contests. So make sure you go out to Facebook and enter. And if you think you've entered, but we didn't record it, just let us know and we'll solve that. So anyway, it's pretty exciting. We have a lot of people signed up and we're going to do that drawing on Friday. Today, my guest is Martha Cook. And Martha works for Trafalgar Square Books. And I have known Martha, I don't know Martha.
Oh, well, it was, I mean, I knew you through Sally and Centered Riding. Right. So it's probably been at least a couple decades.
Yeah, for at least a couple decades, I'm sure. And today I've asked Martha to join us to talk about Trafalgar and the books that they've published, because you probably have a whole collection sitting next to your bed that you didn't even know came from their publishing house. So welcome, Martha. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Wendy's not only a friend, but she's also a Trafalgar author. So you probably all know that.
Yep. So Martha, how did you wind up in the book business?
Well, I was right out of college. I graduated from Mount Holyoke in Hadley, Massachusetts, back in the late 80s. And I didn't know quite what it was. I had a history degree. And if anyone used to listen to Car Talk, you know the joke about, head of unemployment as art majors. And so I was art history. So when I was in college, Sally Swift's book, Centered Riding, came out. And I was fortunate to be a 4-H kid that lived at a town abutting Sally's Brattleboro, Vermont. And so when I was, 10, 12, 14, Sally used to come to our local 4-H ring and give us lessons.
Wow.
So when I was in college, of course, I followed the fact that Sally's book was going to come out. So I ordered it. And from the publisher, it was being advertised in Equus and other horse magazines. And so I sent my money off to a company called David and Charles in Vermont. Book came, a couple years passed. And once I graduated, I was looking for a job in the Hanover, New Hampshire area where Dartmouth College is, and applied for something in their art library. Didn't get it, but looking in the local paper, saw this ad for a marketing assistant at David and Charles. And I thought, they published Sally's book, so they must do something about horses. Well, history, book publishing, I could do it. So I applied. And went trundling off in a suit and heels to literally a farm where they still have horses and cows all these years later. This was in 1987. I wanted to be in the Woodstock, Vermont area where there's Green Mountain Horse Association, and we're right next to Stratford, Vermont, where Denny Emerson's Tamarack Hill is. So I said, yeah, I'll take a $6 an hour job and come. So they hired me. And a couple weeks later, I went up there with my horse in tow, and I started my job, and she started to live on the farm where the publishing company is.
Well, this is so fascinating. I didn't realize that we were like ships in the night, because I went to the University of New Hampshire and graduated in '79 and went to work at Dartmouth.
Really?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
worked in the research facility associated with the hospital,
Oh, all right. Medical school. Yeah.
with the medical
Yeah.
school, right? When it was on campus, uh,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
on campus, and Dr. Feldenkrais actually in '84 did his training at it wasn't Mount Holyoke, it was Amherst, which is right
Amherst.
near Mount Holyoke. So
Mm-hmm.
I had heard of him, but I didn't take the training with him at that point. But it's so fascinating to see that we were all kind of in the same vicinity at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just so amazing that Sally and that book helped me find an entire career. And I've been at Trafalgar now 33 years.
Wow.
Um, and then to be able to work with Sally directly on Centered Writing 2. I mean, it was just an amazing, and I'm so proud to have built the list. And I jokingly say Carolyn Robbins, who owns Trafalgar Square Books and is the one who edited Centered Writing, that she started with the company's bestseller in 1985.
Wow.
And the reason that Sally, pardon, go ahead.
Well, the publisher that you said published Sally's book when you bought it, who was that again?
It was called David and Charles, and that was the name of Trafalgar Square Books when I first went to work there. It was taken from a British company. Carolyn Robbins and her husband, Dr. Ted Robbins, who owned the company. Carolyn came from publishing in England, and they set up distributing British books, which we continued to do actually in 2000 until 2008. And so that was David and Charles. And then along the way, Trafalgar Square Books came about, and we imprint the books as Trafalgar Square because that's the name of the farm that we're based on. And Carolyn and Ted were actually married at St. Martin's in the Field in London, which is in Trafalgar Square, hence the name of the farm, which also is, as I said, a working farm. They have about 60 head of Highland cattle. For many years, there've been horses on the farm. And as I say, my horse went and actually boarded there for the first 3 months because they wanted me to start working and I had to take my horse. So
when did they change the name of the publishing house?
we started imprinting books as Trafalgar Square Books, I believe in 1990. But those of you who have your trusty copy of Centered Writing will notice that on the title page, it does say Trafalgar Square Farm. Because even at the time when it was still known as David and Charles, Carolyn did make it a Trafalgar Square Farm book, even though the production was all done by the big New York publisher, St. Martin's. At the time, there was no production department at Trafalgar Square. That didn't come until I came along and we started doing our own editorial and production and design and that kind of thing.
So Carolyn had met Sally.
Yes, Sally used to make many trips to Stratford, Vermont. Her dear friend Rosa Tyson lived in Stratford, and she taught a great deal at the Perkins farm. Essie and Reed Perkins owned a Huntington farm and were great riders, and Ted and Carolyn were friends with the Perkins. And of course, Sally used to go there and teach back when, Sally was just starting to teach.
Right.
And when Sally decided that all the little pieces of napkin that she had scribbled images on could be a book, she approached Carolyn because she knew Carolyn was in the book business. And Carolyn says, "Oh, I can help you put a book together." And literally it was on napkins and pads that were scrawled on that she chucked into her glove compartment. When I first went to Trafalgar, Sally would still come up and, work at the office. She was probably in her 80s at that point. And as you know, Wendy, I mean, Sally was always said, my biggest career started when I retired because, of course, she was worked for many, many years in the Holstein cow registry in Brattleboro, Vermont. And horses were just a passion on the side.
And she retired at the age of 65. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now. Her book came out in 85, right?
85, and the videos in 86.
Right. And I can't remember how old she was when they came out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know specifically either. So
we could do the
sorry
math.
about the phone.
That's okay. So Carolyn had already published Centered Writing. You bought the book, found the job, wound up in, what town is it in? I've forgotten.
North Pomfret, Vermont.
Oh, right. I love that name, North Pomfret. And went to work for them. And so what were your jobs in the beginning? What were you starting out doing?
Since there was mostly, they only had the one horse book, Centered Riding, and then Carolyn had started to work on a long distance riding book. But mostly I was working on British books. I mean, we distributed books on everywhere from chess to British gardening, and I sent them out. I just found places to send them out for review, and yeah, helped write press releases, and worked in the warehouse occasionally. So it just grew. And I think my interest in horses, flamed Carolyn's, desire to continue to have a horse program. And so she started adding more and more books.
What was the second horse book you added?
It was called America's Long Distance Challenge. As I say, it was about distance riding. And it's been out of print for many, many, many years. Then we did a book called Winning. It was a hunter jumper book by Anna Jane White Mullen. And then Jane Savoie came on board. And we published That Winning Feeling in 1992.
So really, you only had a couple of books from 85 to 92.
Wow. Yeah, it was mostly just the British books.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jane's book, I still have my copies of That Winning Feeling. That was a fantastic book.
And of course, many of you probably know that Jane passed away at the beginning of January. So that's been really difficult for us, because she was a Vermont neighbor, and as I say, I've been working with her since the early 90s. So
yeah, it's very sad news, but the beauty of her book is it's timeless. It's a book that anybody can pick up that wants inspiration and to know how to get it done. And it was I remember reading it as very inspiring, and just it may not always happen the way you think it's going to happen, but keep going because it's going to work out. And that's really a very inspirational book. And then in 92, so you brought on Jane, and so you started adding more horse titles.
Right. And Linda Tellington-Jones came on board. We did her book, Getting in Touch with Horses, that I believe also came out in 92. So Jane and Linda were, really early on. And then we started to work on Sally's second book, Centered Writing 2, Further Exploration, probably in the mid 90s. That came out in 2000. And then we just kind of,
when I would go up to Lucy Bump's place that Sally, because I apprenticed with Sally in 92.
Yep. And Lucille Bump was actually my first riding instructor. After Sally's would come to 4-H, I actually went over and rode with Lucy for many years in Guilford, Vermont, because that was only, about a half an hour from where I grew up. So
what a small
Centered Riding was just kind of what I did, because that's what my teachers did.
Right. So just out of curiosity, how many copies of Centered Riding have sold since it first came out?
It sold about 500,000 in English. And then, I mean, we say it sold, between 700 and 800,000 copies worldwide. And of course, it's still in print in English. It's never been out of print.
Right.
And it was at one time or another available in 18 different languages.
Wow.
Some of those are no longer in print, but it's still in print in French, German, Spanish, Polish, and some of the other countries. As more and more people started reading English overseas. A lot of niche books like Equestrian or, specific sports did not get translated anymore because, people have wanted those specialized books, just buy it in English. But it's still a really top seller in Germany and France.
Is it the highest selling horse book ever printed on any kind of instruction?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And, every once in a while I go back and I open my copy because I think I've come up with something new, and I open it up and there it is. Like
Yep.
the basics are the basics. It doesn't matter what sport you do, actually. What Sally wrote about is the fundamentals of any activity. And it's just so fascinating to go back and every once in a while just pull it out and flip it open to a page and realize there's,
When I teach kids to ride, I go right back there and they do the basics. I mean, and when I ride, oftentimes if I'm just, schooling around, I run through the basics in my head. Are my blocks stacked up? Am I breathing? Am I grounded? Because, we get so intent on schooling this or schooling that. And well, I mean, I know you did your fixes books and then the Ride Like a Natural. I mean, you talk about all that stuff all the time. It's the same basics. So
I bring in a little more science as opposed to imagery, but it all goes back to the same things.
Right.
All right. So now you've got, in the 90s, you did the second centered riding book. And then when did you start to add? Because now, I mean, all you do is horse books, right?
We actually also have a craft list that many people don't realize. We have books on knitting, crochet, weaving. We're very strong with Scandinavian needlecraft. But the horses are by and far the primary, part of the business. So, I mean, we kind of outlasted other publishers that specialized in equestrian. I guess it's because we're all so deeply seated horse fanatics. I mean, Carolyn Robbins has owned horses for years. She was an eventer for many years. Rebecca Didier, who's our managing editor, and does a lot of our graphic design. She started as a little kid in 4-H and did some eventing. I came up through Sally, but then got into Morgan's and worked with on Morgan breeding farms and with sport Morgans, and still always have a Morgan in the barn. So, I mean, how lucky am I? I made a career out of, I made a horse career. And I knew I didn't have the talent to be a professional rider. I don't have that I'll get on anything mentality. And I didn't when I was 20, and I certainly don't now. But I've been involved with, many of the greatest horsemen and women in the world. What a privilege.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I do remember when you saw the footage for the Ride Like a Natural series that you wanted to know if that Morgan was for sale.
Oh, I know. There's nothing makes me, any of you listeners out there, do you have any big Morgan sport type horses for sale? Because I'm shopping again.
Oh, are you? Oh,
yeah, my Morgan's going to be 22 this year. And then I have an off the track quarter horse that he's a great guy, but I really want another younger Morgan in my life again. So yeah, I'm shopping. Aren't we always?
Yeah. And like I went to UNH where they bred Morgans. And so I'm so used to the old, really, so we evented them. Really solid horses, bigger boned, little size.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'll keep my eyes open, but I doubt I'm going to find anything down here. Okay. So who was kind of the next, or what was the next step? Like you did centered riding too, and you started to add more authors. What were some of the authors that you added at the time, or this after Linda?
Oh gosh, now you're putting me on the spot. I'm going to draw a blank. I mean, we started rounding out, we I'm trying to think in the midst of, we did another book by Jane. After that Winning Feeling came out, she did her Cross Train Your Horse and more cross training.
Yep.
Because one thing, Trafalgar Square Books is, I mean, our mission statement is for the good of the horse. And I came from a rather diverse horse background, and I'm a huge advocate that there's diversity, and I say an ecumenical, to borrow from the religion, outlook on horse sports. I mean, they're all horses, no matter their breed or the sport or whatever. So that's where, cross training kind of came around, and Jane started, teaching dressage to be used by everyone. It's basically just really good horse training. So we did Jane's books. We did Hunter Jumper books. I'd mentioned Anna Jane White Mullen, and then we went on to have her famous judging hunters and hunter seat equitation. We've also in Hunters, we've published Greg Teal, of course, George Morris. And we started in having some, a good list of health books. We have The Essential Hoof. We've got
I
Beyond
love
Horse
that,
Massage.
by the way.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful?
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well,
And
I was just going to say, it makes me realize you did Joyce Harmon's Pain-Free Back and Saddle Fit books.
we did Joyce's English Saddle Fitting, which was the horse's pain-free back and saddle fit book. And then we did the Western horses pain-free back and saddle fit book. And those are not available in print anymore, but the ebooks are available. And I'm happy to say that Trafalgar now can offer ebook downloads on our site.
Oh, awesome.
At horseandriderbooks.com. Not everyone needs to add to Amazon's billions. When you order publisher direct or author direct, you're actually making sure the authors and the publisher get a fair royalty. I'm just going to get on my soapbox here a bit about the book business, but Amazon is great for consumers, but they absolutely steal from authors. The amount that authors get on Amazon sales is definitely considerably less than if bought in bookstores or from publishers or tax shops. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. Amazon.
No, the book industry, it's become a tougher industry with the digital age in so many ways. Just because there's so much information available online, and you have access to things like Amazon.
Yep.
And DVDs, are disappearing. Everything's online. But before we get to that topic, I just remember, Joyce's books came out, and because we always seem to do things together. And she and I both came out with a book about the same time. It was my first book, Simplify Your Riding. Right. And she came out with her Saddle Fit book, and we both realized that there is writing a book is like giving birth. I've never had children, but there's a whole process that I think people don't appreciate as to what's really involved with writing a book. From concept to publication. And it's
okay. I'll just mention your idea about giving birth. That is so true. We joke, authors it sounds like a good idea. Then you sign up for it. It's kind of like the pregnancy, and you have to get through it. And then the book comes out, and authors say, "Oh, I have this book now." And, you're like, yep. And then they start to occasionally say, well, I might have a second book in me, because, the pain of the birth starts to go away.
It fades. It does fade.
And they get on to the second book, and all those memories of that whole pregnancy and childbirth can come back. Well, I'll just give a quick run through of what it would be like. We take submissions. Anyone can send us a proposal. Our submission guidelines on our website. And then we also do invite some people to write books for us. So the first step is to, send a proposal to a book publisher. And we meet as an editorial group and decide, is the book good? Is it needed? What does it add to equestrian literature? What does it add to the Trafalgar Square list? And so once, we settle on accepting a book, the author, has to do an outline and, write the book. They have to think about illustrations and photographs. And, then they usually have about a year to put it all together and deliver it to us, at which point it gets edited. And so an author works with one of our editors, and, you have to have a bit of a tough skin, because, we're there to make your words better. And so, it goes back and forth a few times, and then we put it into design. We use freelance designers, though we do our own cover design in-house. Our very talented Rebecca Didier does all of our cover design and ad design. And then it gets printed. And of course, now most everything becomes an ebook, which happens along the way. And then it's all hands on deck as far as promotion goes. In this day and age, authors have to be their own best promoters. And social media has totally changed the landscape of book promotion. And of course, as we're all seeing, magazines are disappearing or they're going online, and that all, it all changes the whole publishing process. But, it's generally, probably 18 months to 2 years in the process of a book from, a glimmer in the author's eye to actually being out on bookshelves.
Yeah. And they're really, I'm not sure that anyone picking up a book, unless you've written a book, can really appreciate how much hard work goes in. Especially, and I got to say, for your titles, one of the things that I've always appreciated is the quality of the layout and design, which is something that I'm not sure everybody even a lot of people don't recognize. It's just something that's sort of behind the scenes when they open a book. It's not what they're looking at. And having written 3 books, when I open a book, I'm looking at design. How is it laid out? Is it clear? Is it too much text on a page? Are the illustrations really good? Are the images really clear? And I mean, I can tell you that we've had some dramas with the books that I've published with you, with the illustrations. I don't know if you remember what happened with 50 Fixes.
Oh, yes.
So just to let people in on the joke, I hired an illustrator and she turned out to be a little crazy. We didn't know it at the time. And she had done the illustrations, but when they're done, the illustrator needs to sign off that they've been received payment and that the author now owns those illustrations. And the woman I hired, like I said, she got a little crazy and she demanded a certified check. So Brad, my guy, met her in the Staples parking lot with a certified check, which she tried to grab out of his hand and not find. And this was on a Friday, and I was on a plane, I think to Arkansas, and when I landed, I called you to see, we were still struggling with this woman. Yeah, this was after when I was on the plane. And you basically had to tell her that if she didn't sign, we were going to redo all the drawings. And that was on Friday, and on Monday, I saw proofs. So that's how far along we were, and she finally signed the paper, but there were 3 illustrations she actually didn't fix. And so Brad got out his X-Acto knife and he cut out the parts that weren't quite right and adjusted them and pasted them back together. And that's how we got them done.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes beyond this, a lot goes on behind the scenes. I mean, there's the illustrators, there's the photographers. I mean, I've jokingly said I've had co-author relationships where I felt like I was a therapist. One would call me and complain about the other, and then the hang up, and the other one would call me and then complain. And we've seen divorces and marriages.
Yeah, and I remember when I was going through my illustrator dramas, I asked you if this was in the top 5, and you said, I think you said at the time it was pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that she, was basically holding them hostage in a parking lot was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So there is a lot of stuff that goes on, and there's a lot. As an author, there's a lot of time and effort and energy. It's not just coming up with the ideas, but it's really getting it down on paper. And then you get it all where you think it's really awesome, and you send it off.
Right.
And then you find out, well, maybe it's not as perfect as you thought. And it comes back with a lot of red pen.
It does. It really does. And I think it's, I take my hat off to authors because it is putting yourself out there. But, in this day and age when many people self-publish, I think it's oftentimes very apparent that good material does need an editor and a designer who knows what he or she is doing. A lot happens with a publisher that people don't really understand. And we frequently now have a situation where people self-published, and then they come to us and say, gee, that was harder than we thought it was going to be. It is a business and a profession for a reason. We are skilled at what we do. And, most of the time when people make a decision to self-publish, that, to use a horse figure of speech, that horse has left the barn. Design and good editorial work does matter.
Right. Somebody's just asking if you have advice for new authors. Do you accept first draft manuscripts?
Yeah. Well, first draft, I mean, if you go and look at our submission guidelines, which can be found at horseandriderbooks.com and the About Us tab, it'll explain exactly what we need. We need an outline or our table of contents. We need a letter of introduction, and we need a sample of your writing. It comes down to providing those materials, and then we meet and, make a decision. We may ask for more information. We might say, not this book, but you write well. If you come up with something else, we'd be happy to look at it. We're very approachable. Any of us on the team can be contacted. It's not we're not behind locked doors. So if someone wants to send a submission, please do. I mean, our bestseller right now, Janet Jones's Horse Brain, Human Brain, that came to us unsolicited.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's, she had this idea and sent it in, and we said, wow, that's new, that's different. So, send it in.
You never know. And I've had several people come to me, names are Sally Batten for one, and because they know I'm an author, they'll call me up and they'll ask me, they'll say, I'm working on this book and I want to, and what is your advice? And I'm honest with them because I've written 3 books and none of them have been easy births for whatever reason. And they've always been slightly different reasons. Whether that's the manuscript arriving just as you're starting your travel schedule to be edited, or whether it's an illustrator that is lost her mind, or one that just, doesn't seem to get the work done or understand what you're trying to get across.
Yep.
So, so I'm always honest with people and let them know that it is not an easy process. It's, people think, oh, I'll write a book. Okay. But having that clarity, and I know for me that I can't do outlines. I just can't do outlines. I couldn't do it for my thesis. And I couldn't do it for the books I wrote. What I had to do was write the content and then figure out what the outline was, which is a really kind of not your typical approach. Like whenever you'd ask me for an outline, I never gave you one, I think.
I know. I think we're still waiting for an outline on the dressage book, Wendy.
Yeah, I have most of it written.
Oh.
Yeah, so maybe I'll dig that out and work on that again. I've got some.
Would you? I'm still carrying it as pending on my forthcoming list, so you haven't gotten away with it.
Okay, all right. Well, I've got it, and actually I've got some new material that probably should go in there. Since I wrote that would be a whole lot better. So maybe I can get back to that. I've had a year off of travel, and yet I'm just now catching up in the office, which is kind of hard to believe, but
yeah, that is hard to believe.
Well, Surefoot's been really taken over, and of course these webinars, which are so popular, that I've been doing. So it's not like I've just been sitting around.
Right.
All right. So now at some point, Trafalgar slightly changed its name.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
You mean from publishing to books?
Yeah.
It happened in 2008 when the British distribution business was sold. It was that whole portion of the business was sold to a company in Chicago called Independent Publishers Group. And Carolyn Robbins retained the Equestrian publishing program. We had gotten too big for the physical plant for the distribution business. When in 2008, when it was sold, we represented over 55 British publishers, and we had a staff of over 30 people. And the farm just couldn't accommodate it anymore. We were starting to bring in whole sea containers full of books on a weekly basis, and it was too much. And I think Carolyn, since they do live on the property, just said, hold on a second, we want to simplify. And what she was passionate about and what I was passionate about was the equestrian program. So they were very fortunate to sell the business. The distributor purchased the name Trafalgar Square Publishing, even though we were the ones that were going to do the publishing, but they insisted on that as part of the deal. So then we became Trafalgar Square Books, and there's been confusion ever since.
Right, because I remember that happening. Was that before or after the 2008 crash?
It happened at the end of, no, excuse me. It happened in 2006. I'm losing track of time. The business was actually sold in 2006. So it was Trafalgar Square Books in 2008.
Right. Okay. So, but it seems like after that happened, and that maybe you had more time or more focus on horse books, because it seemed like your catalog started to really grow after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we weren't dealing with a distribution company. And as a necessity, we needed a bigger list, to carry on as a business. And also our star was rising. We kind of became the publisher of anything equestrian. So we got more submissions, we got more good submissions, we take on more books. We started to do, fancier designs, more what we call tradey catalogs. And in the last couple of years, we've expanded. We used to do just instructional. We're now doing memoirs, and a couple of children's books. And memoirs have become really, really popular. We have Tick Maynard's In the Middle of the Horseman, which was a big success for us. We've published autobiographies of Charlotte Dujardin and Isabel Worth, two of the best dressage riders in the world. This coming spring, we're coming out with Jimmy Wofford's autobiography called Still Horse Crazy After All These Years. And midsummer, we will have Robert Dover's autobiography. So
you've had Denny's books too.
Yeah, and Denny's. We've had Denny's, How Good Riders Get Good and Know Better to Do Better. And in the fall, we'll have Denny's third book, which is called Begin and Begin Again. The bright optimism of reinventing your horse life. And as Denny has done for many years, I mean, he started out with Morgans as a kid, distance riding. Then he became a world-class eventer, rode in the 1974 World Championships, and has done just about anything you can do with horses. So he shares a lot of that in the new third book.
That's awesome. And you know, you were handling DVDs, but now I think a lot of the DVD material is online.
Yeah, we're now streaming from our site, your DVD stream from Horse and Rider Books. And it's just the way the world is going. Many people don't have a DVD player, or they don't have a computer with a DVD drive in it. So as we all are so used to Netflix now, and you know, we're selling streaming content at this point. So there are a few things that are still available on DVD. Centered Riding videos are still available on DVD, and probably will be a little bit longer. We pretty much go with demand. But yeah, that's changing. And we've also started to add some audiobooks to our list, because that's something else that people are doing now that they're on the fly.
Yeah, when you think about how much the industry has changed over this 30 odd years, way back when it was VHS tapes.
Yeah, Centered Riding actually came out on beta.
Did it really?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh wow! You don't even. Most people wouldn't even know what beta is.
No.
Yeah, and it's evolved. But you know, I think the thing that hasn't changed is that the horse people's hunger for knowledge, hunger for good information. You know, and that's the thing that you know, as we keep evolving and we become more modern and more technical and more online, you still have to deal with a living, breathing beast, and you need solid information to do that. So, you know, I think there's never going to be a replacement for a book that has good information. And I think one of the keys is the illustrations and the photographs. I mean, you can listen to an audiobook. I love listening to audiobooks, but you know, like my books, they would be really tough because you need the pictures.
Right. Absolutely. And it really does point up the fact that all through my career, print books always outsell ebooks and video. People still want a print book. And ebooks augment for us now, because a lot of people do want to read on a tablet, and they're great when you travel. But print books will always trump sales over an ebook.
And with ebooks, I don't know, I mean, I haven't looked at any recently, but the ones that I do have, the illustrations and the photographs don't necessarily match with the text because of the way an ebook comes out.
That is true. I mean, for a while there was fixed format ebooks, but you know, with so many different platforms, and I don't know, some people want to read a book on their phone. I don't, but you know, the fact that they want to be able to read it on their phone, on their tablet, on their laptop. You know, it really can't be fixed format, because if you've got a book that's, you know, 8.5 by 11, if it's fixed format on a phone, you're not going to be able to see it. It really does need to be able to morph itself so you can actually see it on larger and smaller devices.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
So that does affect how, you know,
Yeah,
how's
especially with a photo-driven
yeah.
book, because
Yeah.
I have Horse Speak on my tablet, and
Yep.
you know, you're reading the words and you look at the and you go, I'm not sure that's the right picture for what I
Yeah.
just read.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
brings us to Sharon Wilsey, actually.
Yeah. Right.
She I don't know if you know how we met.
Was it at Equitana?
Yeah, we were both at Equitana. She was
Yeah.
there with Cosmos.
Right.
And I was catty corner because Linda was next to Cosmos and I was catty corner to Cosmos.
Mhm.
And everybody had told me I have to meet this person, Sharon Wilsey. And I'm like, okay. And here we were together, and I met her and I was about to go do a Surefoot demo. So literally I dragged her to the arena, stuck her next to my German translator, and she knew nothing. And I just worked with the horse and had her tell my translator what the horse was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a blast. We're great friends. We've done like 9 webinars already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really hit it off. We're both New Englanders. We're both kind of talk loud and fast.
Yes, you do. I can attest to that. And I'll tell you a little bit about how Sharon Wilsey came to us. She and her co-writer, Gretchen Vogel, sent an unsolicited submission, and Rebecca Didier got it. And she said to Carolyn and me, we really need to pay attention to this. So we all looked at it and called Sharon, because she was in Vermont. She only lives about 50 minutes south of where I do. And we said, you know, come on up and tell us about all of this. And we really liked what we were reading. And so I invited Sharon and Laura to come up and demo on my horses. And Rebecca came, and we're like, we're sold on this. She's really got something here. So that was the beginning of Horse Speak. And Sharon's newest book will be coming out this summer as well, called Essential Horse Speak. But her career was really taken off. And we've sold rights, you know, to quite a few foreign languages. And she spends time in Germany and the Netherlands, much like you do, Wendy. And that's her whole concept is really for the good of the horse, which of course is why we're so, you know, passionate about Sharon's material.
Yes. I mean, it was just really, what year did her first book come out? Do you remember?
I think it was 2016. So it's in its 5th year. And then she did Horses in Translation.
Right.
We did the Horse Speak video, and
Right.
now the new book is coming, because, you know, her work has really evolved as she's, you know, gotten out there and worked with so many more horses than just her own herd. A little bit like Linda Tellington-Jones in that way, that, you know, the more they did, the more the work grew, because, you know, your test subjects of horses becomes so vast compared to what you just have in your locale. So
Right.
yeah, she's been
really
a wonderful addition to
It's amazing stuff, and it's really fun, and it's really exciting to see people using Horse Speak to really understand their horse's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think it's one of the most innovative and unique things in the horse world that's come down the pike in a very long time.
Yeah.
So excited about it and how it's making such a difference in the horse world. It's really fantastic.
Really, it does. And when Sharon first came, you know, it's a little bit kind of, you know, I knew my horses so well, and like, okay, you know, what is she going to say about them? And my Morgan was amazed. It absolutely blew his mind meeting Sharon. At one point, he just did this, I just can't take this anymore, and ran into his stall.
Oh,
He's like, I'm just so overwhelmed by this woman. I don't know what to do with it. And he'd come back out and he'd come up to her and he'd interact with her. And then he'd be like, overload, and go back in his stall. I was fascinated, and she really hit it. She really hit it on the head. And I don't know if Sharon shared with you, but she's going to start working on a dog book as well, because her work works with dogs as well, and
well,
cats.
we've had a lot of conversations about it, and basically the way I look at it is her work works with any mammal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, as we're actually want to do a webinar with how to do this with your partner.
Yeah.
People are mammals, and we have vagal response, and we have all the same social interaction. And I think it fits so well with, in the time I've been involved with horses, we've seen this incredible evolution in understanding and in thought. And instead of just, just making them do what we want and having to take a very strong-armed approach, horses are, I always see that horses and people evolve together. Horses are there to be in our lives because they benefit from us, and we benefit from them. Because if we didn't, they wouldn't keep evolving. They wouldn't have changed from a beast of burden to transportation to a war machine, and now, therapists and friends.
Right.
So there's a benefit there, in my opinion, that they have from being with us, and we clearly benefit from being with them.
Right.
But
Right.
there's this mutual evolution. And so in that process now, we've gone from sort of domination and treating them sort of like a dumb animal to actually conversing in their language and learning their language like any other language.
Yeah. And I know you know of this other book we published called What Horses Really Want by Lynn Acton.
Yeah.
Because you did a blurb.
Yeah.
And her work follows along those lines as well. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Grandfather clock. She has something she refers to as protector leadership, which very much falls into what you're saying about horses get something from being with us, and they want to feel safe
Right.
with their herd, which of course includes us.
Yeah.
So, we've had quite a few books, and then, as I already mentioned, Janet Jones's Horse Brain, Human Brain. We're fascinated by the horse as a sentient being, and communicating with them in ways that make it better for them and for us, and hope that we can spread that the good of it to all the various different training methods and sports. And I'd like to see it, being showcased a little bit more on the upper levels, where sometimes financial gain eclipses what's good for the horse. So
yeah, and I think that we'll start to see some change there for a number of reasons. One, simply because of the stress these upper level riders are under that is untenable. There were a number of suicides, I think it was last year, of top riders.
Oh yeah, that was somewhat related to safe sport too, but yeah.
And so there is an evolution of things that's happening in terms of being more conscious about our interaction with each other. On all levels, and that this is a sport and it's something we're supposed to enjoy.
Right. Right. Yep. Very definitely.
So Martha, we're coming close to the end of our hour, but what? One of the things in talking with you today, and maybe I've known this, but not on this level, is that what Trafalgar has done is make sure that there's available a wealth of knowledge that they can access at any time. You just pick up a book. And really the thrust of all of that material and information is for the good of the horse. To help us be a better horseman or woman, to have a better interaction with our horses. And what a service that is that you guys are doing to the horse industry to make sure that that information is available on such a grand scale.
Yeah, well, that's why we exist. It's important to all of us that horses are treated well and fairly with what we do with them. Um, and I mean, I'm just going to briefly show you our new
Oh
our
yeah.
brand catalog, which of course has just come out. And it can be downloaded from our website, or you can request a hard copy. But this horse on the cover is a rescue horse. And I don't know if you can see, but this is him.
Oh wow.
He was rescued by a rescue down in Florida run by Yvonne Barteau called Horses Without Humans. And that's another thing that Trafalgar really stands for is horse rescue and, trying to help. We are members with the Equus Foundation and feel that we in the industry should be supporting unwanted horses and the Right Horse Initiative. So I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I'm trying to
So if
get
anyone
someone
wants
from
to
the
read
Right Horse
more
Initiative
about Eddie's story.
come on. Yeah, because that's a great. They've joined with the ASPCA.
Yes, they have.
Which is
Yep.
really fantastic. And so I've been working on that. And Janet Jones, I'm working on her to be one of my guests as well.
Yeah. Janet's an amazing woman of science. So the two of you will hit it off.
I really like it. Yeah, and we've had Sean Patrick. He's another one of your authors.
Yes, he is.
Great
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
How's his
Yep.
second book coming along?
He dips in and out of it. He's busy, and as life circumstances have kind of affected Sean's trajectory about his writing. So we hope it's going to come along.
Okay, great. All right, so from your catalog, if there was like, what's the I know I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, I bet I know, and I'm ready.
Okay, what's the book we all should read this year? What's the number one book that really we should read?
Oh, okay.
Oh, there was another question. Okay, you can ask.
I think everyone should read Horse Brain, Human Brain.
Okay.
But I'm not going to let you just have one. One of my favorite books of all times is My Horses, My Teachers by Alwa Podolsky, who ran the Spanish Riding School. Brilliant book, old-fashioned but brilliant.
Brought back to print.
Yeah, we have it in print.
Yeah.
And one of my new favorites right now is a book that we published last fall called Distant Skies, an American journey on horseback, about a woman who rode across the country on her horse before there were cell phones and GPSs. And it's a wonderful, wonderful story about a woman, a horse, and a dog. So those are the books that I think you should read this year.
Okay, that's awesome. And of course, I know you're out there looking for new titles and new authors and adding to your library, which is great. And I'll see if I can't get back to work.
I hope so. I'll be getting in touch with you, Wendy.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Martha, so much for joining me today. This has been such a trip down memory lane.
Oh, it has. I know we could keep going. We know many more people in common.
Yeah, really fun. Well, maybe we'll have you back sometime when I come out with my next book and we can do a webinar about that.
There you go. All right. Great,
All
Wendy.
right.
Thanks you for inviting me on.
Everybody have a great day. Bye.
Bye.